Welcome into Beyond Sunday. First, if you're listening to this or if you're trying to watch this on YouTube, you might notice that there's no video. And that is because our cameras are all taken up right now as we are putting the finishing touches on Mother's Day this weekend. I am your host, Luke, and I am joined by my mom, Teddi Sylvia. We're doing a little bit of a Mother's Day special because we have Mother's Day coming up, and my mom will be preaching at essentially 3 of the locations, and then my sister-in-law, Anita, will be at the Middleton location. So we are looking forward to that, but I thought it'd be fitting if we had you on today, Mom. How are you? How do you feel leading up to Sunday and preaching? Because how many Mother's Days in a row do you think it's been?
I was looking at that, and I think 25. But, because I don't teach very much, maybe once a year or maybe twice a year, I just don't feel like ready.
Right. Well, I feel like if you don't do it every week, you probably never feel ready.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure pastors who preach once a month don't feel ready.
Well, I think even your dad probably, as much as he's like, I'm not ready.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've got 5 days, something like that, till we're
an
there.
Eternity.
till we're there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, this episode is just going to be. I wanted to have you on and talk about some parenting stories. That's kind of going to be the flow of this, right? Is we're going to talk about maybe some stories of being a mom. How to, the duality of being a pastor's wife and a mom.
Right.
And then we do want to end the episode with you giving a word of encouragement to moms who are discouraged, tired, feel unseen. And today, in Mother's Day, is hard for a lot of people. There's people who have lost a child, maybe haven't had the opportunity to have a child yet.
Right.
Or they've lost their mom.
Right. It's hard for, I don't want to say a lot of people in the room, but quite a few.
Yeah.
So I could never gloss over that.
Right.
Because growing up in church, that, Mother's Day was just Mother's Day, and you acted like everybody was a mother.
Right.
Or that wanted to be. And it's just not true.
No.
And I don't want to just slide past that.
Right. And then, like I said, you've got people in the room that maybe they don't have kids with them. Maybe they don't even have a family, but maybe they've lost a mom.
Yeah.
And so just being somewhere that it makes a big deal about Mother's Day can be difficult for them.
Right.
And but I do want to start this episode on a lighter note. I would love it if you could share just some funny, maybe embarrassing, whether it's for you or for me and my brothers, of raising us and some stories from that. Do you have any that come to the top of your head?
I feel like most of my embarrassing stories are stories in which I was embarrassed. But like there was one time that you were maybe a baby, but Jared and Jacob were like, maybe not. You might not have been born, but they were like, I don't know, 9 and 11. And they're 10 and 12 years older than you.
Right.
But I had this chicken mask from Halloween. I don't even know where it came from, but Dad probably had it for student ministry or something.
Was it a full face chicken mask?
Yeah, it's like one of those rubber things that you pull over your head.
Oh, it's a full headgear.
And the big long beak. And so we're in the drive-thru at Burger King. Yeah. And as I'm giving my order on the speaker, I decide to put that on. And I'm going, bark, bark, in between ordering. And Jared, who was about 11, like, oh, man, he was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
But because he was embarrassed, it just fed the fire for me. And so we pull up to, they said, Mom, you're going to take that off before you get to the window. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And we pull up to the window, and I put it back on. And the lady said, here's your order. And she's looking at me like, what is wrong with her? And the only thing, I didn't say thank you to her. I just said, bok, bok. Jared and Jacob were like dying.
Get us out of here. They're going to tuck and roll out of the car.
But most of my embarrassing moments were courtesy of you or your brothers. One time you and I were in the checkout line. You were probably 4.5. We're in the checkout line, and this young woman was behind us. That's when crop tops really started. And she had on a crop top, and she had a belly button ring, which you had never seen one of those. I barely have seen any of those. Right. And you looked at her and you said, you looked at her belly button ring. And so I thought, oh no, he's going to say something about her belly button ring. But no, you didn't say that.
Oh.
You said, why are you wearing that? You're fat. And I died. Then you made a comment to the older gentleman bagging the groceries and you asked him why he had those things in his ears, which were hearing aids. I just stopped and I looked at everybody in that line. I said, I just need to apologize for everything my son has said or is going to say before we get out of this life. I was embarrassed.
I'm sure. Well, you had the grocery line was a popular place for you to have embarrassing stories because
Yeah.
I know you have one about Jacob.
Oh, gosh. I hesitate to say that.
Oh,
but
please do.
he was probably about 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but we were in the store. It was just he and I. I don't know where Jared was. He might have been in school. I don't know. And we're going by the popsicle aisle, and he had a fit for popsicles. And I said, Jacob, we already have popsicles. With Jacob, you couldn't explain.
Mm-hmm.
He just, with Jared, you could explain. But with Jacob, he didn't want to, no was not an answer for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, we have some at home. And he got so mad at me, and he went, Mommy, and we're in the freezer aisle, and there's people around, and he says, "You are so," and I thought, "Oh, here it comes. It's going to be me." He said, "You are so sexy," and I think that he thought that was a bad thing,
Of course.
bad word,
Yes.
and I just died. I didn't
So
even have the
funny.
presence of mind to say thank you. I just I'm just so embarrassed.
That's one of my favorite stories because it has to be. We are getting to the point now where I can embarrass Harper a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't even have to be around other people.
Yeah.
It can be me and her. It can be me, her, and Lauren. We frequently have a dance party in the kitchen.
Oh, yes. We have them at our house, too, with
Yes.
them. Yeah.
So we also have like the Amazon
Yeah.
Echo. And,
Yeah.
So Harper talks to Alexa and tells her to play songs. She has it down pat. And so every now and then we'll start dancing. She doesn't mind if I'm dancing with her.
Yeah.
Right? Where she asks me to like hold her
Yeah.
hands and we'll dance. But if I start to solo freestyle dancing, she starts to cover her face and she tells me to stop. Or she looks at Lauren and they exchange just head shakes. They do that quite often
So funny.
when it comes to me. But yes, I am now entering the stage of having a child that is old enough that I can embarrass.
Well,
So I'm
it's
looking
not like
forward
I
to
did it all the time. But, I
Right.
mean, every
But
now
every
and then-
once in a while,
yeah.
you got to put a chicken
Yeah,
mask on
yeah.
at the drive-thru. What else are parents for?
And I'm so mad because once you were old enough, I could not find that chicken mask. It's missing. I don't know.
Well, thank goodness. Now, I want to transition into, you're obviously a mom and you're also a pastor's wife.
Mm-hmm.
What can you share? We'll start with what a blessing is
Mm-hmm.
of those roles, both of those roles, but also a challenge. What's something for you that's the biggest blessing and the biggest challenge of being both a mom and a pastor's wife?
As far as being a pastor's wife, I think we still can't get over the fact that God called us to start a church. We were scared to death, but in seeing that through and just obeying God and not really much else, just obeying Him and being in His will, we still talk about how we just can't really get over it. And as a mom and my kids growing up in the church, I wouldn't even say it was hard. I mean, I'm very blessed in that, Dad and I are the same at church as we are at home.
Right. True.
And so it wasn't hard, but there sometimes were expectations. So I worked really hard with my kids, just telling them, what was a good expectation and what was not a valid one. And I just sort of set them free from those. Years ago, this lady walked up to me. It's been at least 20 years ago. Yeah. And so she walks up to me, and there was an election coming up. And she said, "Did you know that Jacob said in small group, my child told me that he's going to vote. If he could vote, he would vote for the Democrat." And I'm just looking at her, and I said, "You do know that Democrats can be Christians too. And she's like,
Oh,
no,
she didn't like that.
no, she didn't like that. But I mean, like it was the right thing to take up for my kids, I did when I felt like there were unrealistic expectations. Even when we went to like 5 services at one point, when we were at the other location, like I didn't make y'all go to every single service. I go to every service now, and I did before, but then, because when they were little, you all wanted to go every time. But as you became teenagers, I just did not, we would just stay home on Saturday nights, or we would just go to one service on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want you all to feel like church was a burden.
Right. But I do think that the biggest proof in my life that it's not like church isn't a burden, or never really was a burden for me. I don't remember. I'm sure that there were Sundays where I just didn't want to go to church.
No.
But I don't recall any.
I don't recall any Sundays where my kids said I don't want to go to church.
And I think that a big piece of proof is that as soon as I could, I was serving in elementary.
Right.
And I want to say I was in elementary, serving in elementary.
You were in 5th grade.
Yeah. So, and I was in 5th grade. I would go to the kids' service, and then I would serve in the tech booth, and I'd click the videos to start them on the screen and all. I always wanted to be a part of it in some way, which, I mean, spoiler alert, now here we are.
Yeah.
I am at the church 6 days a week. So I think it's just a testament to the balance that the approach you took, because I think about every Sunday. Now that I'm on staff, I'm here for the first service, which means that Lauren has to get the kids ready.
Right. That's hard. And I remember those days.
That's what I'm saying is there's a lot that goes into it that people don't maybe realize. It's like, okay, maybe you and your spouse are kind of keeping track of how many times you have to do everything for the kids to get them somewhere.
Ladies don't keep track because it's just take it one day at a time.
But with being on staff at a church and with being a pastor's wife, there is one day at least during the week that you're going to be doing all of the stuff to get them ready.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of times in the mornings, sometimes Dad would go to work early if he had a message he was putting the finishing touches on. I mean, you did a lot to ensure that we would be good, that I would be to school on time, and I would be picked up. So there's a lot there that I don't think that a lot of people realize.
And in fact, when Dad would go to work throughout the week, I would never say your dad's at church. I would say your dad's at the office. And I only paralleled him at church on Sundays.
Interesting.
And so I just made a real concentrated effort to keep that separate.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you all probably have some baggage, but I prayed that God would protect you from that.
Yeah.
That you would see the joy in the local church.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I will say I'll share one of my favorite things that we did growing up that was related to the office or the church, right? Whether it was summer or early release, I talk about this a lot because I think about it. I think it's awesome that we would go to Dad's office at the old location is when really I was in middle school, elementary. Go to Dad's office and there's a McDonald's right by there, and get, a burger or chicken nuggets, whatever, and just sit at his coffee table and just eat around the coffee table.
Yeah, I would say we're going to go to Dad's office and have a picnic.
Yes. So we would have a McDonald's picnic, and it was awesome. It was as a kid, that was awesome. And I don't know. I mean, it helped me grow a fondness toward the church as well in those moments where it's like, oh, we can go in there, we can go into Dad's office, and we can share lunch or whatever. But yeah, I still remember a lot about Dad's office as I'm reminiscing. Good. But he always had that floating globe. I remember that.
Yeah, you did.
He had a magnetic globe on either side, and it would spin.
He has all those things, I guess, still. But now what he does for his grandchildren is he keeps Kit Kats in this little freezer in his little refrigerator. Yes. So like anything to make everybody happy.
Now I want to talk about something that everybody that's listening can relate to, which is that as a parent, is the tough seasons of parenting. How would you say that your faith has grown during those tough seasons of parenting? Because, by the way, you're still parenting.
Yeah.
People may think the kids move out of the house, you're not parenting. You are still parenting as your adult children in some ways, right? Your relationship changes, but how
adult kids are hard, by the way.
You still have tough seasons. When your kids are adults. So how does your faith grow when you do have a tough season of parenting?
Well, I mean, I guess I just automatically flash back to teenage years, middle school and high school years. And I got to a point with one of my kids that I realized one day, sometimes God is all you have. Like, I don't have all the answers. And one thing that we never did was act like our kids were perfect. Like if they got in trouble at school, maybe, I hate to say names, but Jacob would lie to his teacher that, his cousin was in town. And they would call me and say, so we know Jacob's cousin in town. I would say, no, Jacob's cousin is not in town. So I never tried to feel like I had to portray this image with schools or authority figures. And I just felt like, God would work that out. And he always did.
Yeah, and I will say, I want to further that story. Jacob was brought a friend to school with him and said that it was his cousin that was in town, so it was just momentary that he would be there for the day or whatever it was. So yes, that's also a really funny story. How do you feel that in those moments where you maybe feel small or unseen, how do you feel that God meets you as a mom in those moments where in the small and the unseen?
So I remember with one of our kids, we went to counseling. He went to counseling, we went to counseling, and I think counseling is a great option for most people. Yeah. So I just want to put that out there. But she said to me, he was about 15, 16, and I said, are we almost done? Is he through this difficult period? She went, oh no, you've got another 4 or 5 years. And I thought, I don't think I can do this. And I just felt like I went to the Lord, and I just felt like he said, take it one day at a time and trust me. And so I just tried not to look too much in the future because, yes, I felt a little bit of expectation, maybe your dad did too, that people were looking at us thinking, well, they're not very good parents. But I just decided they could think what they wanted to think.
Yep.
But I wasn't going to try to hide who we were. Because I just think it's more important to be authentic than fake it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And continuing with mom talk, what is your favorite thing about being a mom?
I just think it's just growing up with them. I mean, I still am sad that I don't have kids in my house because I just loved that role of being a mom and going to ball games and even meeting people like that. Yeah. We just had a network of people, especially with you at your school, just, having connection and community with other people. But, I mean, to tie it a little bit to, like, when your dad was diagnosed with the brain tumor, you were 3, Jared was like 15, Jacob was like 13, something like that. And, here I am, we have this growing church. I have these kids, and God taught me so much. I wasn't sleeping very much because your dad was getting ready to have surgery for the brain tumor. It was a benign tumor, but it was growing so fast. It was going to kill him if they didn't do something. Right. And I woke up in the middle of the night just in a sweat. So I got up. When I'm in a sweat like that, I just get up and start reading my Bible. I think that's a good go-to.
Yes.
Instead of just tossing and turning. And I turned to a psalm, and I wish I knew what psalm it was, but I told the Lord, I said, what am I going to do if I lose him? I've got these kids.
Yeah.
And I clearly heard him say to me, they're my kids. So I actually thought God was trying to tell me that he wasn't going to make it, but it was just a moment of trust. Yeah. So in the difficult situations or even being a mom, it was like a lady told me one time, you have a public life. And I never thought about that. Yeah, I have a public life. And I just decided I would let God figure out all the rough spots, and I would just stay, in line with Him. That's why I have a quiet time every day, because it's not because I'm a pastor's wife. It's because as a Christ follower, I need to do that to keep myself, upright and blessed. I mean, like feeling blessed. I know I'm blessed because God's in my life,
Yeah, and without giving it away, what is the theme of your Mother's Day message this weekend?
Well, it sort of goes with what I was just saying, but it's out of a psalm. I'm not going to tell you which one, but it's about we know that God is supposed to be our shelter, our refuge, our place of safety, but I'm going to talk about how to get there. Well, all people, but I talk to women, not just moms, but women, because I don't really think the guys listen to me too much. I'm not sure, but I talk to them about in those hard days or in those chaotic days, how do you keep God to be your shelter and your refuge every day?
Right. Well, I'm excited for that this weekend, and I know that everyone should, whether you're a mom or not.
Right.
Because I know that these are some of my favorite messages, is because there's something for everybody in the message. It's not just moms.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have done well, and the Springs has done well, is making sure that it's not a niche thing. That's like, if you're a mom, can you relate to anything in this message?
I would never want to act like every woman in that room is a mom.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's simple.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it could get away from someone who's teaching and, it's a Mother's Day message.
Yeah, right.
So I'm excited for it. And the last thing that I want to do is would love for you to give a word of encouragement to moms or even women in general that are discouraged, tired, or feeling unseen right now.
If I was face to face with a woman who was any of those things, which is, first of all, you're not alone. And I mean, of course, God is always with you, but there are many women that feel that way, and for good reason. So I would just say to you, any woman out there, no matter what your struggle is, He's enough. Lean on Him, depend on Him, spend time with Him, because nothing will fill you like like the communication, the community that you have with the Lord Himself.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think that's it for today. I know we want to get you back to being able to message prep and get ready further for this weekend. So once again, I appreciate you. I love you. I'm glad you're my mom. And happy Mother's Day to you, and happy Mother's Day to anyone that is listening. So we will catch you guys next time.
Okay, and y'all pray for me as I prepare. Thanks.
See ya.